Okay, so I'll just go right into the class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is the beginning of the 39th chapter, 10th canto, and this is Akura's vision. Okay. Shri Sukha Uvacha Sukhopavista Paryanke Ramakrishna Manitaha Lebimano Vatan Sarvam Patiyam Satchakaraha Sri Sukha Uvacha Sukhopavista Paryanke Ramakrishna Manitaha Leve Manoratam Sarvam Patiyam Sarchakaraha Sri Sukha Uvacha Sukhopavista Paryanke Ramakrishna Manitaha Lebe Manoratam Sarvam Patiyam Sarchakaraha. Anyone else? Jai Baladev, go ahead. Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sukadev Goswami said, Sukha, comfortably, upavista, seated, paryanke, on a couch, Ramakrishna, by Lord Balarama and Lord Krishna. Uru, very much, Manmitaha, honored, Lebe, he attained, Manaratan, his desires, Sarvam, all, Panti, on the road, Yan, which, Sa, he, Chakara, Ha, had manifested. Translation. Sukadev Goswami said, having been honored so much by Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, Akrura, seated comfortably on the couch, felt that all his desires had been contemplated on the road were now fulfilled. All the desires he had contemplated on the road were now fulfilled. Verse 2, my dear king, what is unattainable for one who has satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. Even so, those who are dedicated to his devotional service never want anything from him. Verse number 3. After the evening meal, Lord Krishna, son of Devaki, asked Akrura how Kamsa was treating their dear relatives and friends, and what the king was planning to do. The Lord said, my dear, gentle Uncle Akrura, was your trip here comfortable? May all your good fortune be yours. Are our well-wishing friends and relatives, both close and distant, happy in your good health? My dear Akrura, as long as King Kamsa, that disease of our family, who goes by the name material uncle, is still prospering, why should I even bother to ask about the well-being of our family members and other subjects? Verse 6. Just see how much suffering I've caused my offenseless parents. Because of me, their sons were killed and they themselves imprisoned. Purport. Because Kamsa had heard a prophecy that the eighth son of Devaki would kill him, he tried to kill all her children. For the same reason, he imprisoned her and her husband Vasudeva. Om Gyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksaun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya De Sitarine Panchakalpa Turubhischa Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare. Shri Kishore Kishore Ki Jai. So the intrigue is being played out here. What is that intrigue? Kamsa he has a plan to kill Krishna. He has this nice arrangement, he thinks, anyway, that's his arrangement. And he's put powerful elephants, powerful wrestlers, and a competition for stringing the bow. All this very powerful bow, of Vishnu's bow, and he thinks that if I can bring Krishna because all his plans to kill Krishna has failed. He sends all these demons. And Krishna just, it's like nothing. It's like a little breeze comes and he just pushes it away. And Krishna killing demons in Vrindavan was just play. It's not fair, really. Krishna's not fair. I mean, sometimes they say, why should Krishna fight with people in the material world? And there's no competition. He's cheating. He wins all the time. But sometimes he makes it a little excited just to make it, to make people get a little more suspenseful. They get worried that Krishna's going to lose. So he puts a little dramatic show into it to give it a little, some fanfare. But that's Krishna. I think we can shut the lights out. Yeah, I think we got the beautiful sun coming from the beautiful Michigan River coming off the river. And so there is criticism. It's in there. I came across one. Why should Krishna fight with anybody in the material world? It's not fair. He's just like, he wins. There's no fight. But it's his program for giving liberation to those who are inimical or atheistic, demoniac, and at the same time also giving pleasure to his devotees and reducing the burden of the world. That's why he comes. He has to do this work sometimes when no one else can do it, so he does it. And that's, but for him it's a play. It's not really. So now Kamsa's thinking, I failed with all these other demons. All these other demons that were killed by Krishna, they were all conquered by Kamsa. And they became servants of Kamsa because it describes in the Garga Samhita that Kamsa was challenging and defeating one demon after another. And as soon as he would do that, he would make that demon his servant. And that demon would have to carry out the will of Kamsa. Kamsa was powerful. Bakasura and Keshi and Sakatasura and Trinavarta and Aristasura, Vyomasura, and all of the demons, Palambasura, Agasura, they were all defeated by Kamsa previously. So now they're all coming on his behalf. They're just doing it because, if they don't, Kamsa will kill them. So, he's a rascal. Big rascal. So they're coming, and Krishna's dispatching them one after another to the abode of Yamaraj. And now Kamsa thinks, if I can bring him to Mathura, then he's on my territory, I got the plans. And so he sends Akrura. Akrura is, he's kind of happy to go, but he knows Kamsa's a demon and a rascal. But somehow he did a little service for Kamsa, and he's kind of like in disguise as a friend of Kamsa, but he's really not. He's just doing this. He's actually a relative of Krishna. He's his uncle. I think he's one of the brothers of Vasudeva. And so now he's excited to go to Vrindavan. And you hear a little bit in these translations how he's anticipating what will happen when he gets to Vrindavan, and Krishna will see him, and Krishna will do this, and I will do that. And so it all came true. He's remembering how Krishna fulfilled all his desires when he was thinking, boy, I just can't wait to meet Krishna. And it was so beautiful. Everything that he was dreaming of was better than he even dreamed of. Krishna treated him so wonderfully and worshipped him and honored him. Because Krishna respects Vedic culture, and Akrura is senior in age, and he's also his uncle. He's Uncle Akrura. So Krishna gave him all regards, Balaram also, both. Now they're on their way back to, but Akrura made a big mistake. You'll find out later he has to pay for it. When he took Krishna out of Vrindavan, he didn't say anything to the gopis. And the gopis they were angry at Krura for taking Krishna, but at the same time, he didn't pay them any attention either. He didn't say, my dear gopis, I just have to take Krishna for a little while, but Krishna will be back. Don't worry, I understand how much you love Krishna. Just be patient. He didn't do any of that. He just got his chariot, put Krishna on, so they cursed him. He wasn't at all polite. Later on, you'll see, in the later chapters, in the 53rd, 54th chapter, he gets into trouble, gets into bad association, and he starts doing things. And that was all because of the curse of the gopis. Just because he wasn't, taking proper etiquette to say, well, I have to take Krishna out, so just, I'm sorry, I know how you feel. Some nice words of solace, but nothing. He didn't do any of that. That was his mistake. And so now you'll see he's and Krishna asks him, how is the residents of Mathura doing, our family members? And Krishna knows, and he also says that obviously with King Kamsa there, they can't be doing good. They're suffering, they have difficulties. And Krishna knows, but he's inquiring anyway just to hear from Akrura. And so this starts to play itself out in a very wonderful way. Akrura's vision comes really, really amazing. Krishna gives him so much mercy. So we're preparing for the upcoming events when Krishna enters into Mathura. And Krishna, when you get that chapter, is really exciting. When Krishna enters in Mathura, he's like, okay, I'm ready. He's walking in like he's God. He is. But he's strutting along and the women are glorifying him. People are coming up and I won't get into that chapter now because it's coming up, and so we'll save that when it comes. But here we can see a little bit about Akrura's love for Krishna and Krishna's love. Krishna did so many things just to make him feel happy. And this is the proper etiquette. When a guest comes, just like a guest comes to our temple, we should respect that guest as if that guest was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the etiquette. Anyone who comes into the temple, for whatever reason, Krishna somehow or other sent them. And so it's our duty to make sure that they feel happy, comfortable, and get a little understanding of what Krishna consciousness is about, and especially prasad. Prabhupada said every guest has to go get prasad. He said, we always have to have prasadam ready. Prabhupada, I didn't hear Prabhupada speak this, but the devotees were speaking it, that Prabhupada had said that all our temples should prepare nice prasadam all day, puris, halava, sabji, chutney, and keep it. He said 4 preps, and keep it all day, and then when guests come in, they get a full plate of prasadam. And he said at the end of the day, and if there's anything left over, the devotees can eat it. And Prabhupada understood how important it is to honor guests. Of course, around in Chicago, sometimes the guests are a little bit, they're from the streets, but still, we still see them as spirit souls. We give them some prasadam, we honor that. Jitendra is good at that, right? He takes care of all these people who come around and gives them prasadam. And that's proper. That's the best way to give them a start in Krishna consciousness, just to give them prasadam. But you never know. Sometimes Krishna sends a very important guest. And if we treat that person right, then you can see that person may also open up and do so many wonderful things for the devotees. So that's a very important part of our culture, is to honor guests. It's one of the highest principles of Vaishnava culture. We don't consider this our temple. We consider it's Krishna's temple. And we take care of the temple. We take care of the responsibilities of taking all the services. And whoever comes, it's their temple just as much as it is our temple, except we've been given the good fortune to take care of the temple. And that's our good fortune. And when we see things like that, and, when people get a nice experience when they come, then they want to come back. They want to come back. All the devotees were very friendly. I got some nice prasadam. I even got some understanding of what they're about. These are for new people, but even people who have been coming regularly, everyone should be respected and honored as somebody that is important. And that's the mood of temple etiquette, to see everyone as special when they come to take darshan of the Supreme Lord. Because Krishna in the heart tells them, go to the temple. And then they go. They don't know it, but they're getting the mercy of the Lord in that way. So honoring, you'll see how Krishna here, how he honored, he said, the Lord said, my dear, gentle Uncle Akur, was your trip here comfortable? May all good fortune be yours. Are our well-wishing friends and relatives, both distant and close, happy and in good health? And he goes on to say, he understands. He goes on to say, but my dear Akur, as long as Kamsa, the disease of our family, which we call our uncle, is still there, it's not bothered to ask the well-being of others, because we know that they are not doing good under his care. But Krishna is he is the personification. When during the preparing for the Rajasuka sacrifice, when King Yudhisthira was organizing a big affair to honor all of the guests in Hastinapur, different kinds of people were coming, royal people, sages, saints, ordinary people were coming. And everyone in the palace was given a particular service. And one of Krishna's service was to greet the guests. And you'll read, it's in the first canto, Krishna responds to 8 different people, categories of people, in 8 different ways. And to the sages, he bows down. To the equals, he smiles, very friendly. To others, he shakes their hands. To the little kids, he shows some affection to them. And depending on the person, Krishna responds to each one in a different way, but all in the same way, in the sense of welcoming them, greeting them, and making them, feel happy. And so Krishna took that service. Now you see how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he teaches, and he also honors the etiquette of Vaishnavas. And if we learn how to do that more and more, you'll see our temples will be much more full of devotees and at the same time more prosperous. Because you never know who comes through the door. Sometimes some special soul that we don't even know of. Okay, so these are a few things in this. And that whole culture of Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. How a devotee behaves in each and every situation is really the basis of the devotee's relationship with Krishna. When we develop a relationship with Krishna, and then how we treat others is more or less a reflection of that same relationship. Sometimes you see it in the reverse way. How we treat others is also how we treat Krishna. You can look at it from both angles. But both of them have their connection with the mood of devotion. like that. Of course, sometimes people don't understand, and sometimes sometimes they misunderstand. One of the greatest sources of problems is misunderstanding. The husband and wife sometimes don't misunderstand each other. They misunderstand each other. There's a story where one husband and one wife, they were fighting, and then they got tired of fighting. They thought, we're going to end it. And so they decided, well, before we end it, let's give it another try. So they went to some marriage counselor. And the marriage counselor was quite good. So he was trying to find out what is the source of this contention. So he finally got to the husband and the husband says, she doesn't love me. And to prove it, she bakes bread, and when she cuts the bread, she gives me the end piece every time. This proves she doesn't love me. True story. And now, the wife was Italian, and if you know Italians, they think the end piece of the bread is the best part. So she was giving him what she felt was the best part, and he thought she was doing that just to make him feel less. Misunderstanding. And the marriage was saved, just in case you want to know the end. But that's an example of how people misunderstand each other, and based on assumptions. There's one story where Prabhupada, sometimes he would greet guests. So there was a very special guest that had come. Prabhupada happened to be in the temple room. And so Prabhupada turned to the devotee who was with him and he said, go get some maha, referring to the guest. So the boy goes, and he goes into the pujari room, and the pujari just said, well, I just put the offering on the altar, and you're going to have to wait till the offering is over, and then you'll have the maha. So the boy returned to Prabhupada and said, well, it's being offered, and so we have to wait. Prabhupada said, no, get it now. He didn't want the guest to wait. So the boy goes back into the pujari room, and this time the pujari is doing his Gayatri. So he walks right past the pujari, he walks on the altar, takes the plate off, and starts walking off. Now you can imagine what that pujari was thinking. So he starts chasing after the devotee, and they both arrived at Prabhupada at the same time. So who's wrong? Was the pujari wrong? Was the boy wrong? Was Prabhupada wrong? Misunderstanding. You see how situations come because people misunderstand each other. So that happens a lot. So in relationships, it's always good to make sure everything is clear and understood, and that way there's no misunderstanding. Especially husband and wife when you're very close. Sometimes you assume things, that there's some assumption based on the relationship. And the husband is supposed to know that the husband thinks that the wife knows, and the wife thinks that the husband knows, but it doesn't happen. And then something else comes up. So in order to avoid that, the communication is the basis of all honest and open communications. So we can see how misunderstandings are always the cause, many times, not always, but many times, the source of contention between different individuals. As soon as it's cleared, then the contention is gone. Because, nobody has the same vision. Each person is an individual, and everyone sees the same situation slightly different. Sometimes people see it almost the same, but always because of our consciousness, no two consciousnesses are exactly alike. Only when you become fully Krishna conscious, then everything is clear. But until then, we have what is called subjective consciousness, which is a mixture of something material and something spiritual, or the perception that we carry with us based on our experiences in the world. And this formulates our character, our qualities, our relationships. So no two people see the same external situation exactly the same time. And that's why communications is important in order to come to some kind of conclusion about, especially when there's some responsibility for activity, and then it clears everything up. Helps to clear things up. So that's important, because the environment is really subjective. There is an objective reality, but that is pure Krishna consciousness. And Krishna tells it in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, "Thus when you learn the truth, you will know that all living beings are my parts and parcel. They're in me and they're mine." In other words, one realizes that every living entity, no matter what body they may have, vidya vinaya sampane, brahmani gavi hastini, and suni chaiva supakecha pandita samadarsha. Samadarsha means one who sees the equal vision, each and every living being as being part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is situated in the heart. Of course, the etiquette is to learn how to interact with people or not interact with people based on the proper understanding. But ultimately, the vision of a pure soul and the pure vision can also be applied even to those who are not pure in consciousness. We can apply that pure vision. And that is the process of, theoretically practicing the reality until the reality becomes no longer theory anymore, it becomes actual realization. And that's our process in Krishna consciousness. And so everyone who comes to this, door should be seen as, here's a soul looking for Krishna, here's a soul interested in something about spiritual life. Let's help them in some way to gain something by their visit. No one should go away feeling neglected. Okay, so that's a little bit about Vaishnava etiquette. You see how Krishna is he's the epitome of Vaishnava etiquette. He carries it with him, and then the ultimate sense of it. He treats everyone accordingly. Of course, he's God, but he doesn't think I'm God, and therefore, I can treat you any way I want because I'm God. No. He's not like that. He's very kind. He's super kind. Tough guys on the block, they think, well, I'm better than everybody, so who cares about you? A devotee might think, well, here's the karmi, and I'm a devotee. And they might get that subtle, may not be so prominent, but subtle idea that we're a little bit, we are, in one sense, we are more fortunate, but the idea is to make the unfortunate fortunate by giving them opportunities to move forward in spiritual life. Okay, so I'm not sure. That's a short class, 33 minutes. Any questions? Comments, Subha? Yeah. Do we have an audience out there too? Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Such a wonderful points that you brought on in the class, specifically the point of communication, and also connected to what you mentioned of Akrura's mistake in not properly communicating to the gopis, that ended causing him some serious trouble.
Yeah, he got involved with the situation with the Chamantaka jewel and the plot to kill Satyajit.
Yeah, so one thing that you mentioned was this subjective sort of type of consciousness that one might have when there's the combination of spiritual and material, which in a sense sort of fits the definition of a kanishta or a neophyte devotee, mix.
No, it can be mixed even for Madhyama also. Yeah, until one reaches pure Krishna consciousness, then there's always not necessarily, but there is a tendency that one can act in a material way, or think in a material way, or even desire in a material way.
I was thinking that in the case of when you're in that situation that you have that subjective perspective of things, and it's a reality, and then you have, as you mentioned, different people have different subjective perceptions and understandings, and even when there's clear communication with, even when that communication could be something that is not understood, or not even accepted by other parties. So the conflict is very easy to happen in this type of subjective exchanges and things like that. So what would you say is guidelines and things that we have as people that are affected?
But being very perceptive on how people are accepting what you're saying. And you just see whether they're accepting or not accepting, understanding or not understanding. Don't assume that what you're saying is the absolute truth, and then if they don't get it, that's their problem. That may be the case, but the thing is, we can always approach the same subject matter from different angles of vision. Like sometimes people would ask Prabhupada a question, and he would say, if you just chant Hare Krishna, you'll understand everything, without even answering the question. That's one way to answer a question. And Prabhupada, again, if someone asked him a question, he would say, just go back home, back to Godhead, and you'll know everything. And then sometimes he would explain the answer in different ways. So seeing your audience, or getting a little bit understanding of who you're communicating with, or what type of mentality you're communicating with, and then try to make that communication as effective as possible. I think we should be seeing how everything we're saying or doing is being received or not received. If we see something that's not being received at what we're doing, we might think, well, maybe I shouldn't have did that, or shouldn't have said that. That's just one possible way to evaluate how things are going. There's many ways. Like yesterday, we were traveling from Zagreb to Istanbul, changing planes there. And so, and then we had to get another plane from Istanbul to here. So when we were getting into the aircraft in Istanbul, I was standing in a line. And people were running this way and that way, and everybody was getting out of line. And there was one guy next to me who was, me and him were kind of being just pushed aside. So I said to the guy, I said, organized confusion. And he liked that for some reason. So then he turned to me and he said, oh, okay. He said, well, what did he say to me? He said, what do you live in Chicago? Because we were headed for Chicago. I said, no. He said, where are you from? I said, New Jersey. And then he said, okay. He said, I travel around a lot. He said, that must be fun. And I said, well, I talk about God. And that was the last thing I said. So then, when I came to pick up my luggage in Chicago, he's there by the conveyor belt. So I came up and I said, I made it. And he smiled. And then we got talking a little bit, and I said, where are you from? He said, Detroit. I said, oh, I'd been there. I said, we got a temple in Chicago. So I said, can I give you some of our information? He said, yeah. He was like, yeah. So I gave him a card, gave him a little pamphlet. He's looking through the pamphlet and he says, are you in any of the pictures? I said, no. And then I said, I can stop in any of our temples and have a vegetarian meal. So the whole conversation started off because we both were like in this confused line, getting in line in Istanbul. It was just like so crazy. So I just picked up on that as a way to start some conversation. Because if I would have said anything else, it wouldn't have worked. So we were both experiencing the confusion, so we had something to connect with. So it worked out, and and then I shook my hand, and we parted, took off. It was nice. So that was Krishna's mercy. Krishna arranges for devotees to meet people and talk to them. But it didn't start off with anything spiritual at all. It just came to that a little later. And then when I was going through immigration, the man said, what was the purpose of your trip? Because, you have to write down where you've been. And I was thinking, my trip to Chicago? He said, no, your trip. I said, well, we go around and we talk about God, and we just try to help people understand more about God. He said, oh. That's all he said. He was like surprised, I guess. Because I was wearing army clothes, and I wasn't wearing, but you got the bald head and the sika, you got a bead bag hanging from your shirt. So you look like half spiritual, half material. So yeah, there's so many opportunities to reach people, especially now. It's like people are really, really, really kind of confused. They're confused and they're fearful. And it's really, especially in the United States, it's a good chance to really spread Krishna consciousness now. I think it's easier to talk to people now, at least in a way that they might be more receptive to what we have. Yes, Karunanidhi. Karunanidhi, he preaches to his passengers in his cab. You're still driving a cab?
No, not
You just gave that up, huh?
last from couple years I'm not working
Oh.
because of Corona. Yes, Maharaj, we are very happy to receive you. And one question came in the second verse. That means how whatever Akrura was contemplating on the way, that wish became fulfilled.
Yeah.
By arriving there. And same thing happened several times with me also. Now, today morning, when I was writing Bhagavatam sloka, I was thinking Maharaj should sing that is Asumati Nandan. And you also sing that. I then said that. I was confused on how that.
You were the cause of it.
So my question is, who is coordinating between our thought with Krishna's thought or with your thought? And sometimes you are having dream also.
Krishna's in the heart. Krishna's in the heart. The very living entity. He knows everything. If he wants to make something happen. But if you have a particular desire, and the desire is a desire that is acceptable, then your desire has an effect on the environment. Even if you don't speak it or act on it. You can understand what's about to happen at every moment if you can perceive the environment the way it's being. Because everything is happening according to the conditioned souls or desires. So the desires pushes the energy in a certain direction, and that desire, the stronger that desire, the more likely something will come immediately. Sometimes something comes later. But again, it depends on if the desire is mixed, then maybe nothing. But if the desire is pure. And even the materialists know that by desiring in a certain way, you move the material energy in that same direction. Yeah, the demons are successful because they have strong desires to cause problems to everyone, and they're very effective because their desires are really strong. Yeah, the desire of anger is one of the strongest desires. And demons are always angry. But if you're protected by Krishna, you're not affected. No matter how strong a person's desire is. If you take shelter of Krishna like that. So everything's based on desire. But when you depend on Krishna, then you're successful. But your depending on Krishna has to be in line with Krishna's desire, not just, you can't have a material desire and then depend on Krishna. You can, and it may not work, and it may work. Depends. That's hard to say whether Krishna may fulfill it or he may not. That's up to Krishna. He knows whether by fulfilling it, will it help your Krishna consciousness or will it take away from your Krishna consciousness? If it's going to help your Krishna consciousness, sometimes Krishna fulfills the material desire. Mm-hmm. Sometimes devotees want to get some position in Krishna consciousness. So that's material to try to get a position. But sometimes Krishna will give it because he says, oh, that devotee can use it for doing greater service like that. So Krishna, he sees what is beneficial for the devotee. Jai Baladev.
Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for your class. You made a lot of very important points for me, and I'm sure for a lot of devotees, especially regarding honoring devotees. And first of all, I'd like to appreciate you, because whenever I was depressed and I came to the temple, and you always made devotees dance, and that depression would immediately go away. So that's one thing I always appreciate about you, many things, and especially emphasizing if our Krishna consciousness is getting off, it's probably because you're not doing japa properly. And then without fail, it's for me too, so I always appreciate that point every time you will come and emphasize that point. As far as honoring the Vaishnavas, there's a few devotees I would like to honor, because you make the point that when you receive a guest, you should honor them like the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
You should respect them in the proper way, yeah. In other words, sometimes that's where it's seen. It explains that when a guest comes to your home or to your temple, they're seen in that same way. In other words, as you would treat the Lord, you would treat the guest. In other words, in the best possible way. Trying to, see what you can do to make their visit, a nice experience.
So, I appreciate a few devotees who I feel like I'm undeserving of their care when I go to their home, like Mother Rohini, Subhakir Prabhu, but especially I would like to highlight Karan and Nidhi Prabhu, because during this whole pandemic, most of the temples were closed, understandable to most devotees, including myself. But Karan and Nidhi, he decided to start an online Zoom program to speak Krishna Katha to some parents and their children. And for 9 months, I've been going for 5 months, but gradually Krishna has blessed him that he reposts the reruns on Facebook, and he has 4,000 subscribers now, and people all over the world are reciprocating with Karan and Nidhi. And when I go to his home, he without fail, treats me and anyone who comes to his home, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I'm very grateful for that. And so my question is regarding how we could be the difference between thoughtful and thoughtless. We see in the Bhagavatam that a thoughtless leader says, I have to make the right decision. A thoughtless leader says, whatever decision I make is right. And so you all, without fail, when you would come to Chicago Temple, you would always tell the story of a devotee, a guest who would come to the temple, and the devotee says, would you like to become like us? And he says, of course not, because if you treat me like you treat each other, then I wouldn't want to become like you. Treat your guests better. So how do we know from our own perspective? How do we know just everyone? It doesn't matter what position you are, position, no position. How can we determine whether we're being thoughtful or thoughtless in our relationships? Because generally we self-righteous. I speak for myself. So how do we determine whether we're being thoughtful or thoughtless?
Be thoughtful. Don't be thoughtless. Thoughtless means that you're not seeing the whole thing. You're just acting my way or the highway. Or another saying, everyone is entitled to my opinion. So, we have to repeat what Prabhupada says, but in our own understanding, that's Krishna consciousness. We can repeat Prabhupada, and we should, but at the same time, we also have to realize what Prabhupada is saying, so when we have a similar situation, we can explain it or repeat it in our own words. And that's taking the knowledge and applying it and getting the understanding from that application. Well, that's Krishna consciousness. So being thoughtless means we're just not really serious about what we're doing. We're just whimsical or arrogant, either one. Two opposite sides, the arrogance and the whimsical.
Krishna Maharaj. It's nice to see you after a long time.
Hare Krishna.
I consider very fortunate. Thank you for your wonderful class. My question is like on this, particularly Akura was meditating on the Lord, and finally Lord reciprocated according to his desire. So we in our Krishna conscious, like myself I'm saying, go through many things up and down in our spiritual life. But we do some service, menial service, whatever, according to our capacity. So how we understand these things that am I going to right this or I'm doing wrong? What's the, like whatever service we do, is it is pleasing to Krishna? Or how can I progress on this path of Krishna consciousness?
Well, pleasing to Krishna means trying to please Krishna. That's a conscious act. It's not just, well, I'll just do something and hope it pleases Krishna. No, we should try to please Krishna. And that's a mood of bhakti. Ayavilasita sunam jnanakarmanabhita anukulena Krishna silanam bhakti uttamam. To please Krishna with a desire to please Krishna. The demons please Krishna too, but they don't have any desire to please Krishna. So we should try to think how when I'm doing something, what would be pleasing to the Lord. So if you know, the more you get to know about Krishna, I mean, you know what he likes. He likes specific things, but then again, ultimately the point is, bhakti is what pleases Krishna. So trying to please Krishna is bhakti. Even if you fall short of the quality, still, if you're making some attempt to please Krishna, Krishna will see that as he'll accept that, oh, they're trying to please me. Maybe the activity wasn't so perfect, but at least they're trying to please me. So that's the mood. And knowing Krishna, just like, for instance, I'll give you an example. One way to please Lord Chaitanya is to sing Hare Haraye Nama Krishna Yaravaya Namaha Yaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya. Lord Chaitanya likes that. So when you add that to the kirtan, then you can know that you're doing that as a way to please Lord Chaitanya. He likes that particular bhajan, which is also the holy names. That's the holy names of the Lord anyway. So that's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Lord likes that particular bhajan. And he illustrated when he was here. So you get a little understanding of what Krishna likes. Or, when you're cooking, you think, what does he like? What time of the day it is. So then you cook according to the time of the day and find out what he eats during that time of the day. And you can make preparations like that. There's different ways like that. The activity and the mood, both. Try to please Krishna. If one is practicing humility, that's very pleasing to Krishna. One is practicing tolerance, that's very pleasing to Krishna. Expert at doing something is not so much a glorifiable quality, although it's an attractive quality. It's not as glorifiable. I'll give you an example. There was devotees were in Vrindavan, and they had met this very expert bhajan singer, and he was really good. He was also he was a little bit famous for his singing bhajan. So they brought him to the temple during the morning program, and he came. And they asked Prabhupada if he could sing. Prabhupada said, yeah, give him a chance to sing. So he started to sing, but although he was singing very beautifully, Prabhupada could understand he was proud. He was proud of his voice, proud of his abilities. No, Prabhupada stopped it. Prabhupada could sense he's more like, he's more like a showman than a devotee. But Prabhupada stopped it and then told one other devotee to sing, and this devotee couldn't sing at all. Prabhupada picked someone who was just more like a frog. And he was singing, and Prabhupada was very nice. Prabhupada was enjoying it. Because the boy had bhakti, but he didn't have any musical, abilities. So that's an example, where this other person, there was no bhakti there, it was all about him, but he was expert, so. So when you have both, then that's the ideal. When you have expertise and you have bhakti along with it, then that's preaching. That's preaching. But bhakti is always, Krishna always, bhakti amam abhijananti, by bhakti he's known. For he's attracted by bhakti. So offering prayers to the Lord, appreciating the Lord, that's a form of bhakti. Hey, is there anything else? Any other questions? Okay, so I can't see the time. 8:40. Okay, that's good. I have another class at 10 o'clock online, so I have to maybe end here. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.